Oh, hi. I'm in a 1999 Audi S4, the B5. Actually, when this car was new, it was a proper step up from a regular Audi A4, and it was also significantly faster than anything that Mercedes or BMW had to offer in this class outside their AMG, C-Class and M3 offerings. Actually, Audi did a very smart job in scaling this engine, because it started with 230 horsepower in a pedestrian Audi A6 through 250 in the old road up to 265 in this S4 B5 and reaching 380 in the RS4 after some Cosworth treatment, but still. And surprisingly, we're only scratching the surface of the tuning potential of this engine, because as I said in my turbo tuning video that should pop up something right somewhere around here, this engine has plenty of headroom for tuning. It's actually very hard to find one of these untouched by tuners. It ranges anywhere from mild ECU tune on stock turbos to ridiculous huge turbos, huge intercoolers, scary stuff. The setup I'm in sits right in the middle. It's around 450 PS and 550 Newton meters of torque. So it's double the power of a stock S4, and we're only scratching the surface. So let's take a ride and see what she's like to drive, shall we? Okay, let's get going. Actually, it's my first time in this car. What I'm really interested in is how the tuning, namely swapping the stock rather small turbos for the Borg-Warner K16 ones, the turbos that are found on a 996 turbo, how they affected the power band. Because with normally aspirated engines, it's usually the case that when you start tuning the car, it in most cases it compromises the everyday usability of the car, because you lose some of low-end torque, the idle becomes rough. But with turbocharged engines it's often the other way around, because when it's done properly you can iron out some problems that come with the car stock, because often in some cases manufacturers limit the torque in first two gears to save drivetrain, and you can mitigate it by properly tuning a turbo engine. So I'm happy to report that maybe it doesn't spool like the small stock turbos do, but I'm at 2500 RPM. Let's step on it. Okay, and we get a substantial amount of oomph from around 2800. So my butt dyno tells me that it's about 1000 RPM later than in the stock one. Sure, modern turbo engines with variable valve timing, with variable turbine geometry in Porsche case, they spool up much earlier, but for a 1999 car it's plenty responsive. And I'm telling this as I'm saying this as a normally aspirated engine lover. Okay, let's try that again. 2500. And you get boost. It's plenty drivable. Not that downshifting to get the sweet power band is a chore, because as usually with Audis and Volkswagen Audi group in general, shifting is pleasure. I happen to be driving a E46 BMW as my daily, and there's no comparison in terms of shifting quality. There's something mechanical, something very precise about the way that Audi gearboxes function. Actually, this one is not a stock transmission from this car. As one of my viewers pointed out, is the 01E transmission found in the B6 Audi S4, the V8 one. Okay, my camera guy is giving me directions where to go. Okay, we got the stop sign here, so let's let the guy. Okay, we're letting the VW Polo 6N go, and we're chasing him. Talking like 4.5 seconds to 62 miles an hour, so it's a far cry from the stock 5.6. And the faster you're going, the more prominent the difference gets, because this car, as I've been told, gets 0 to 124 miles per hour, so 200 kilometers per hour, as we say it here in Europe, in 12 seconds. The stock car does it in 24, so it's virtually sliced in half the acceleration time. You don't have to. I don't have to tell you how this affects the driving experience. Okay, let's indulge this great power plant. Okay, I'm cruising in fourth, 2400 RPM, and even every slight movement on the throttle gets some kind of response. I guess the fact that, as per usual with Audi engines, this one is largely under squares. It's got a big stroke, so even off boost, it gets some power. I tell you about the clutch, the way it operates. As you probably imagine, it's not the stock part, it's a dual plate custom clutch, but if I didn't know it, I wouldn't tell, because it operates just as my daily BMW, so it gets bite right in the middle of the pedal travel. It's progressive nothing to complain. Combined with this sweet shifter, it really makes the shifting a real pleasure. And we're talking about shifting at very high revs, because while the stock car has red line of like 6800 RPM, here you got a whole 1000 RPM more to play with, because it's got stiffer valve springs allowing for 7800 RPM. At this engine speed, it's got to be real precise. The shifting has to be real precise, because we want to avoid money shifting, do we?
No.
So far, this quattro torsion system inspires lots of confidence, because the rear axle gets lots of grip. Personally, I'm a huge fan of this mechanical torsion system, because it's plenty predictable, unlike some modern all-wheel drive systems that can play tricks. They use lots of electronics to juggle the torque, but they can be handful in some extreme situations, because you never know how the all-wheel drive system is going to respond to the driving conditions. Here, it's always predictable. It may not be the most effective in some tests, because I've seen some tests where the BMW xDrive, with its intelligent torque distribution, outperforms Audi Quattro. But in my book, this is just way more predictable. It gives you more confidence as a driver. But that's just me. Steering department is basically everything you would expect from a 90s car. It's a hydraulically assisted system. The rack is pretty, I wouldn't say too quick. It's no Alfa Romeo by any means, but it's plenty responsive. The steering rack is consistent, so you get an equal amount of travel throughout whole rack, so never do you find yourself in a situation when it tightens as you turn. No, it's always predictable. I would say the steering rack is a bit looser than the E46 BMW, but I would say it's in the same ballpark. Nothing surprising for me. I guess it's just the way the cars were built back then, so it's no surprise. The same goes for the brake bite. You don't get artificial brake bite as you would get in modern cars, where everything works too light for my liking. It's almost too responsive. You have to be careful not to touch the brake pedal, because everything's so sterile, so light. Here you got a proper amount of meat, should I say. You have to press everything to make it work. Not to the point that it gets tiresome when you're driving. It's just the sweet spot. Everything works the way a grown man like me expects it to work. Not too light, not too heavy, just the right spot. Before, you get a punch of torque at bit below 3000 RPM, but the real fun starts after 5000. It really gets nuts. Volkswagen Group uses some clever trick. In the shifter underneath, down there are weights that after you push through the initial resistance of the shifting, the rest of the work gets done by itself, because there's a weight that pushes the shifter on its place. So virtually you're just doing half of the work. The other half is done by the physics, because you give the initial momentum for the mechanism, and the rest of the work is done by the weight that moves the shifter in its place. It's really clever stuff. Okay. Okay, let's move through the RPM range. Okay, turn on my butt dyno. Okay, boost, 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 more boost, more boost. Of course, as you can imagine, all this power and sweet noise comes at the price. In this case, well, it's not your modern lean mixture 6-cylinder turbo engine when you can do 30 mpg. No. We're averaging like 50 liters per 100 kilometers, so it translates to about like 16, maybe 17 mpg US. But then again, who expects a highly tuned car making some sweet oomph noise to get a diesel-like mpg? You gotta be realistic with your expectations. In my book, if it's below 20 liters, like 11 mpg, it's okay. Oh shit, it's harsh. Okay, to sum up, what is my overall opinion on this car, on the B5 S4? Is it an nicht oder ja, ach ja? I think it's pretty fair to say it's an ach ja, because it gives you plenty of performance for the buck. You get really a lot of a car for your money, because you get a 4, or rather should I say 5-seater that could be daily driven, that gets you from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 5 seconds, and maybe even less, maybe 4 seconds if you go even further with the tuning. It gets you to 120 in 12 seconds. It gets pretty decent mileage. It sounds great. As I said before, it gets a little bit R35 GTR vibes, at least to my ear. The interior is nothing to be ashamed about. Of course, it won't impress your gold digger, your Tinder date, but after all, this car is not about making impression on other people. It's about how it makes you feel when you're driving it, and it's really good at it. So from the driver's perspective, I really enjoyed today's driving experience. So yeah, I could recommend it, but there's a grain of salt in this summary, because mind you, even though these cars can be had for relatively, as I said, low money, when you consider the performance, the level of performance that you get into, but it comes at the cost, and the cost being maintenance work on these cars. It really is a pain, is a huge pain, because you get a relatively big engine. It's a V6, so you get 2 cylinder banks, you get 2 turbos that are really stacked very deep in the engine bay, and every maintenance work under the hood is a major pain. So I would recommend, when you're in the market for one of these, when you buy one of these, I can't stress enough how important it is to pre-inspect the car, and when you're doing something, you pull out the engine and do it, as you say it, while you're there. So even something doesn't require replacement, do it, because doing it next time will cost you 2 or 3 times as much money. So do it all at once. You'll save yourself lots of money and lots of stress. Other than that, if you keep that in mind, I think it really pays off. The car will really give you lots of fun, and that's coming from something that's from someone who's not a huge fan from Audi. So I think it's a pretty solid recommendation. So here's that. So that will do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. I'm not the one to beg for your thumbs, ring bells, or whatever. You know what to do. You've been on YouTube for long enough, so I'm not gonna teach you. You're welcome to browse all of my other stuff on YouTube, and take care. See you on the next video. Peace.